Hey, what's up everyone? My name's Chris Winter, and in this video I'm going to compare two very fast focusing cameras. Firstly, the Sony A6300 and also the Canon 7D Mark II. Now, if you haven't done it yet, make sure to subscribe because I'm actually going to be giving away either a Sony A6300 or a Canon 80D to a subscriber. And guys, also definitely make sure to check out my top 5 list of the best lenses to shoot sports with. I'll put a link in the description box below under this video and you can check it out. But anyway, let's compare these two cameras. Now, I'd just like to say a big thanks to Brisbane Camera Hire for letting me rent out the 7D Mark II for this comparison, but let's first take a look at the build quality of these two cameras. So as you can see, there's actually a monumental difference in size between these two cameras. Being a traditional DSLR, the 7D Mark II towers over the A6300, and it does feel a lot bigger in your hand. But that's not to say that the A6300 isn't a tough camera. You know, it's got a magnesium alloy frame, and although it's small, it really does feel pretty solid. The 7D Mark II is fully weatherproof though, which is quite a big deal for a lot of people. So overall, in terms of build quality, the 7D Mark II is the winner here. Now let's talk about the LCD screens on the back of both of these cameras. Now, as you probably know, both of these cameras are missing touchscreens, which are pretty common these days, so they're both even on that fact. But the Sony A6300 does have a little bit of a tiltable screen, which is something that I like. Now, whereas on the Canon 7D, you're really forced to try and see what you're shooting. With the A6300, you can easily tilt your screen up or down depending on where you want it. Now, the A6300 screen definitely isn't perfect. I'd like to see it be a touchscreen and also be fully articulating, but compared to the 7D Mark II, it's a lot better. Now, one feature that I'm continually saying to myself that would be a really good feature in the Sony A6300, and it's something that the 7D Mark II has, is dual card slots on the side here. On the 7D, you can use a CF card and an SD card, which means that you can either use one for more storage or you can use it as a backup. And that's actually a pretty big deal for me and for a lot of people who really can't afford to lose their photos. So for me, that's a big winner on the 7D Mark II. Now, coming back to the build quality for a second here, I just wanted to talk quickly about the top LCD screen here on the Canon 7D Mark II. Now, this has long been a staple amongst pro cameras, and it's something that I've really become accustomed to. Being able to quickly change and see your settings without having to look through the viewfinder or on the back LCD screen is huge, and it's something that I'd like to see in the A6300, and I do feel like it's lacking. Now, of course, this would make the A6300 a bigger camera, but it is something that I really do like on the Canon 7D Mark II. Now, speaking about that viewfinder, both of these cameras have two very different viewfinders. On the 7D, we've got a very traditional optical viewfinder, which is really great, and it's got 100% coverage, so you can see exactly what you're going to be shooting. Now, on the A6300, we've got an EVF or an electronic viewfinder, and if you've never used one before, it can take a little bit of time to get used to. But once you do, it can be really great. You get a much brighter image to see what you're shooting, and you can also use it in video. Although I did find the A6300's viewfinder, it still did lag a little bit. So which one's better? Well, I think that's really going to come down to user preference. Now, if you're looking for a camera to shoot sports and wildlife with, both of these cameras will be very good. Even though mirrorless cameras are pretty new compared to DSLRs, the A6300 can in fact fire faster than the 7D Mark II with a burst rate of 11 frames per second compared to the 7D's 10. So just for reference sake, here's what 11 frames per second sounds like on the A6300. And here's what 10 frames per second sounds like on the 7D Mark II. So let's talk about the autofocus performance on both of these cameras. Now, the A6300 is claiming to be one of the fastest autofocusing cameras in the world, and to be fair, it's definitely very impressive. I also found that the 7D was just as impressive though, although its motion tracking and subject tracking wasn't as good. Now, I'm going to be doing some more tests on the autofocus systems of these two cameras, so stay tuned for more videos. Now, being a brand new camera, you'd expect that the A6300 would have Wi-Fi included, and it does. Now, to be fair, although it can be a little bit clunky to set up initially, having that ability to transfer your photos to your phone or help compose your shots is great. And the 7D Mark II doesn't have Wi-Fi, and to me it does feel a little bit archaic not having it. So overall, if you know you're going to be needing to use Wi-Fi, I definitely look towards the A6300. Now let's talk about video. Now, both of these cameras are touted as having very good video systems. The 7D Mark II had that dual pixel autofocus brought in from the Canon 70D, and the A6300 now has 4K. Which one's better? Well, I'm probably going to have to say the Sony A6300. It's incredibly sharp in 4K, and compared to the 7D Mark II, it really looks a lot better. The A6300 also offers S-Log, which is great for post-production. Now, both of these cameras did work really quite well in autofocus for video, with the 7D Mark II being quite similar to the old Canon 70D. Now, the 7D Mark II does have a headphone jack, however, which is something to consider if you're going to be recording video in camera. But overall, if you are mainly going to be shooting video, I'd be looking towards the A6300. Now the A6300 is still quite a lot cheaper than the Canon 70D, coming in at around about $1,000, whereas the 7D Mark II is coming in at around about $1,500. But after looking around, I've found that you can actually pick up the 7D Mark II secondhand these days for a lot cheaper, so it can be an interesting choice. Now, if you're going to be shooting mainly stills, I'd probably be looking towards the Canon 7D Mark II. It's a fantastic camera, and you've also got access to hundreds of Canon native lenses. But if you're going to be traveling or you're going to be shooting stills and video, I'd probably look towards the Sony A6300. So that was a quick comparison between these two cameras. Both of them are very good choices, especially if you want some really good autofocus performance. Now definitely make sure to check out my top 5 list of the best lenses for sports. I'll put a link in the description box below under this video. Hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.